Hey geeks and gamers, and welcome to the first part of reviewing every single game on Atari 50. Now, I did do a video review of Atari 50 a few years ago on the PS4 version, but I still play it, and they're still releasing stuff for this compilation. This collection, this celebration came out back in 2022. And it literally just got new DLC again this week. And that blows my mind that, you know, there's 167 games on this thing now. And who knows what else they'll add to it, if they'll add anything else. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to start a series where I go through every single game released on the Atari 50 Celebration collection and review every single game. Now I'm just gonna do a grab bag of games each episode. So my plan is to do 5 games an episode, which means this series, if I ever finish it, will be extremely long. So me of the future, if I ever do finish this series, I am sorry that I ever started this, but I thought it'd be a lot of fun. And I'm like the Atari guy. I have so much, if you could see behind the camera in my office, and then of course I have the arcade machine here. There's Atari stuff over here, Atari stuff over here. There's a drawer of Atari games. Look, I got Firefly. You know, it's just, I love Atari. As long as I've been doing Turbo Zone, I think 2 years in, I started doing Atari stuff, and it's been a staple of the channel. So hopefully you get something out of this. Maybe you're a big fan of Atari, do you want to see what's on this collection, or you want every game to be reviewed, or if you're just looking for something to put on in the background, I got you covered. Enjoy the first episode of every game on Atari 50 reviewed. Have you played Firefly?
Hello, y'all.
All this inspiration that came from Atari gets to come full circle and see it through this lens.
It's the most fun I've ever had making a game. Adventure really broke the mold for what the 2600 was capable of.
In the beginning, there was only Atari, and the children looked upon it and saw that it was good.
Gravitar from 1982 was one of the most ambitious arcade games for its time. And today we're not taking a look at the arcade version, we're actually taking a look at the 2600 version, released a year later, programmed by Dan Hitchens. Now, the premise of Gravitar is that you control a spacecraft in a solar system surrounded by several planets to explore. Each planet has their own little objective. Usually it's to take out the enemies in that area. But what makes Gravitar special is the fact that the enemies aren't really the challenge. It's more the control and the sense of gravity in each area. Usually you're either above a pretty big playing field and you're being pulled down, or sometimes you're going all around a planet and you'll be pulled to the center of the map. Gravitar has always been a very challenging game, a game that's really hard to master, and it wasn't a game that I really appreciated that much until recently, until I played some more of the arcade version. And as you can imagine, if I didn't really appreciate the arcade version of Gravitar for a while, the 2600 version always kind of put me off. When you start playing it, like the arcade version has like the vector style graphics, and it's like at least visually pleasing. The 2600 version, they're doing what they can here, but it just kind of looks like a bunch of little shapes all around the screen. And for a while, I never gave this version much attention. I always thought this was maybe like a bad port. But having played a lot more of the arcade version, I'm impressed with the 2600 version of Gravitar. It's surprisingly playable and surprisingly ambitious. They can't really replicate the vector style visuals on the Atari 2600, but everything else in this version of Gravitar is like pretty much intact. You know, it feels very similar to playing the arcade game. It has the explorable planets. It has, you know, up to 4 different rounds of planets that you play through. I think there are a few technical limitations that hold it back from being as good as the arcade version. But overall, like, once you get used to the visual style of this version of Gravitar, yeah, it's surprisingly playable. And this is one that I have found myself, you know, returning to. This game was actually first released as only a game you can get through the Atari Club back in the day, but they did later on release it for larger distribution. But it's not a super common game when it comes to the 2600. So the inclusion here on Atari 50 is nice. I do like the inclusion of 2600 Gravitar. Should you play it over the arcade one? I'm not sure. Like, probably not, but at the same time, I think it's kind of cool seeing this version and seeing how playable this version is. So I think it is still worth being on the collection. And you know, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I've been putting some time into this one, so I'm gonna have to give Gravitar 2600, if I had to rank it on my patented Arby's ranking system, what would I give Gravitar? I'm gonna give Gravitar 2600. I'm gonna rank it curly fries. I think just like curly fries, it's addictive. It's something that, you know, goes alongside another thing, which is the main version of Gravitar. But yeah, I think it's a pretty addictive game that you keep coming back to because it's reliable, just like curly fries. MajorHavoc, released in 1984. Wow, what a game. This is one that I haven't really played that much of until recently as well. I have the Atari 50 arcade cabinet from 1UP, whatever the fuck that company's called. And it has like 14 different arcade games, and MajorHavoc is like the standout game for me right now. It's the game I've been playing the most. You probably can't tell from this footage because I really suck at it. But MajorHavoc is a game that I hadn't really played a lot of, and wow, what a cool game. MajorHavoc is like a combination of different styles of Atari arcade games kind of mashed together. Like it has like a brick breaker style, like Breakout style gameplay. It has spaceship shooter gameplay, and it has like 2D platforming gameplay. And yeah, it's like very unique. I'm looking here on Wikipedia. It says, according to the story provided by the game's original cabinet, long ago, the evil Vaxian Emperor took over the galaxy. Most of humanity was enslaved and abducted to the Vaxian homeworld. A few humans, who were scientists, managed to escape. At the current moment, according to the timeline of the game, the Empire has since collapsed, but numerous Vaxian space stations, all blindly controlled and defended by robots, still remain in the galaxy, mindlessly pursuing their original orders. A small band of scientists who initially escaped managed to clone the great human hero MajorHavoc in order to fly his Catastro fighter, that's what a name, through a wormhole in space so that he may lead a clone army against the dreaded Vaxian robots and to liberate the remnants of humanity by destroying the enemy space stations. Wow, what a story. What a cool story. So you're playing as an army of clones of a human hero named MajorHavoc. Yeah, this game is fucking awesome. Major Havoc is like currently one of my favorite Atari games. There's a little bit of jank in this game, mainly with the 2D platforming sections. It's real. The physics for those sections it's gonna take you a minute to really adjust to how that works. But after you do, like, wow, this game is so fun. Like, doing the different segments, doing the brick breaking segments, which just takes like a second for that one. But, you know, mainly doing like the spaceship shooter segments, and then going into the space stations and finding the reactor and then blowing it up and like escaping and like blowing it up and seeing it blow up on the screen. Like, this game feels larger than life, and it feels larger than a lot of other Atari arcade games for me. And I'm kind of sad that like it's one that I hadn't put that much stock into until recently. It's not one that I had really... I think I had access to this one a few times on a few different collections and stuff, but it wasn't until I got my arcade cabinet that I really took the time to learn this game. And yeah, it's a really cool game. Major Havoc, if I had to give Major Havoc a score on my Arby's rating system, it's getting a beef and cheddar. Like, that's like the highest accomplishment you can get on the Arby's rating system. It's delicious. It's always there for you. You never get tired of it. It's got variety with the beef and the cheddar. And Major Havoc is just like an Arby's beef and cheddar. It is something that I would order every single time. So if you haven't played Major Havoc, this one's definitely worth checking out. Realsports Tennis. I have to cover everything on these collections, so these sports games will definitely be sprinkled throughout these episodes because I don't want to do them all at once. So we're looking at Realsports Tennis here, and I'm not the biggest fan of playing some of these older sports games for Atari consoles. I'm sure there are fans out there of these titles, and hey, you know what? That's great. I'm happy for you. Real Sports was a line of games that Atari did for the 2600 and other consoles, I believe, that I think tried to improve the visual style, because they had earlier versions of tennis for Atari, but they really tried to push the visual styles of this game. And this game came out in 1983. I was actually doing some research here, and they don't actually know who programmed the 2600 version. They know who programmed the 5200 version, but we're talking about the 2600 version today. So I don't actually know who to credit for programming this one. But, tennis is... I think tennis is a premise that works decently well for video games. I mean, Pong was basically tennis. It's just hitting something back and forth. So... while I may not like some of these early sports games as much, this tennis, I think, is serviceable for Atari consoles because, there's not much reason for me to go back and play it here like I am with a computer other than to review it and look at, like, the visuals. Like, it does look decent for a 2600 game. Like, it almost looks like it could be a 5200 game or something. You can see some of like the artifacting of like the character models on the side of the court, where you can definitely tell that like they were stretching the limitations of the console here. But in terms of the gameplay, like, yeah, it's just tennis. You're just hitting the ball back and forth, but between the two sprites. So playing it by myself against the computer, it's not really all that exciting. It's kind of like shut off my brain and play. I imagine that this one is a lot more fun with a second player, and kind of, rallying the ball back and forth and, like coming up with like, I don't know, you can't really do that much like maneuvering, I feel, but you can probably do a little bit. So having another human player, I think, would definitely improve this one. But to me, like, this game almost falls into the fluff category of, like, it's here because they needed titles and this was one they had available. But I don't think this game's bad at all. You know, I'll probably talk about some other sports games that I don't like down the line. But I think Real Sports Tennis gets the pass from me because I do think it could be fun with another player. So I'm going to give Real Sports Tennis, I'm going to give it the Arby's Potato Cakes. Because I don't think the Arby's Potato Cakes are anyone's favorite, but I think they're serviceable. I think every once in a while, having some Arby's Potato Cakes as your side item, I think is fine. DigDug is a recent inclusion on Atari 50 with the newest Namco-themed DLC pack. And DigDug is one of my favorite Namco arcade games. And I was curious to check out this version. This is the 5200 version of DigDug. There's a few different versions of DigDug included now on Atari 50. I had never really played this one before. If you don't know the premise of DigDug, you play as Taizo Hori. You go through different stages, digging underground, taking care of the Pukas and the Figars, which are the little red guys and the dragons, respectively. And you try to blow them up with your pump. And it's a very fun and addictive arcade game that is one that, like, it's a high score chaser, and this game never really gets old. I always find DigDug to be a lot of fun. And the 5200 version here is interesting because I've only ever, on Atari consoles, I've only ever played, I think, the 2600 and I want to say 7800 version. I think I've played some of that one. Yeah, no, I definitely have because they share audio. But the 5200 one I've never had experience with. So playing it here was cool because it is still DigDug as I know it, but it has like little oddities to it that like make it feel unique. And there's some aspects that I actually didn't like as much. One of the aspects is Taizo Hori himself. You know, the guy you might call him DigDug, but that's not his name. He feels a little slow in this version compared to other versions I've played, and I'm not sure if it's just me. But yeah, he feels a little sluggish when he's running around in the dirt. But this has always been a great game. There's still some fun mechanics you could abuse in this game. One of my favorites is the trick where you can push your pump and push over at the same time, and you can pump really fast. This version, I couldn't get that to work as well. Like, it did work somewhat. But it's a trick that you can use for like the arcade version and stuff and really pump through enemies really quickly. And yeah, like this is still a very serviceable version of DigDug. I find I liked playing the 5200 version. I like getting to experience versions of games that I have never played before. I think that's cool because now, like, I think I want to say there's like 3 versions of DigDug on this, or 4 versions. I think there's the arcade 2600, 5200, and 7800. So be prepared in future episodes. I will be looking at other versions of DigDug, but yeah, the 5200 one I think is a good version. I don't know if it's the best one on this collection. I mean, considering the arcade version, but even of the Atari versions, I don't know. I kind of have a fondness for the janky looking 2600 one. And also Taizo looks kind of weird on the 5200. Like, his sprite looks a little off. Also, but you know, that's the fun of playing some of these old, like, late 70s, early 80s arcade ports to these consoles. Is, yeah, they usually look a little off. They usually look a little weird. But, like, I don't know. It's part of the charm. So, DigDug 5200. Jeez, what do I give this one? What do I give this game? I'm going to give this game a cherry turnover. Because just like a cherry turnover from Arby's, it's not something you can eat all the time, but it's just a nice little treat. And that's what I think DigDug5200 feels like. It feels like a nice little treat that I might pop in every once in a while. And lastly here, on each one of these episodes, I want to show off at least one of the Jaguar links or one of these reimagined titles. So today I'm doing one of the reimagined games, which if you don't know, on Atari 50, Digital Eclipse themselves made 6 new games for you to experience, which is a pretty cool like feature on a game collection like this. So this is NeoBreakout. And, you know, the concept of Breakout is simple, and it's a really early arcade game. Like, you just, basically, you're playing one-player Pong. You're bouncing a ball against one paddle up to break blocks. And it's a gameplay formula that has been adapted again and again throughout the years. Many different companies have taken this style of gameplay and ran with it. And it's because, even though it's such a simple concept, like Breakout is such a fun and addictive game that you can add your own twist to it and still keep it like feeling pretty fresh. So NeoBreakout is Digital Eclipse's kind of like chance to take the Breakout formula and do their own thing with it. And what they've done here is they've paid homage to classic Breakout while adding their own twists, mainly the addition of power-ups. So throughout the stages, you'll find different colored walls usually, and if your ball touches that wall, it has a different effect on the playfield or your ball or whatever's happening. It will give you a different power up. Sometimes power down. Sometimes it's a disadvantage. And you know, it does add a little more like strategy to the game, because there are like different colored blocks and you can put those together, like hit them in certain patterns, which I've never been good enough to do that, but it's something you can do. It probably affects the points or something. And you know, just the game itself is super addictive. I'm playing here on the PS5 version. Playing it with a PS5 controller is all right. I mainly use the little touchpad thingy, which it feels pretty good to slide back and forth. I don't like playing it with the joysticks at all. The way that I actually prefer to play this is on my Atari VCS. I play it on there sometimes. And on the Atari VCS, you can use the built-in paddle that comes on the classic joystick controller, which feels fantastic for this game. So it really makes me wish I had like more of like a paddle-like solution. Like, at least on the PlayStation version here, I can use the little touchpad, and it feels pretty good. But playing this on Xbox or Switch must be brutal, because the precision needed for this game, I can't do it with the joysticks. I miss the ball like every single time. So yeah, if you're gonna play this, just know that like you might want to play it on PlayStation or the VCS or something, because you know everyone has a VCS. But I really do like NeoBreakout. I think this is one of my favorites of the reimagined games that they did for this collection. And I don't know. I'm going to give this if I had to give it something on the Arby's rating system, I'm going to give it a nice Jamocha milkshake. Because just like a Jamocha milkshake, it's sweet, and it's something that I like to get at the end of my play session to end off. I have no clue where I'm going with this analogy. This is the Arby's rating system is like the worst idea I've ever had, but I'm too committed now. The NeoBreakout is a Jamocha milkshake. There's my rating. what an awesome episode. I can't believe I reviewed video games. I don't know where I'm going with this outro. Thank you for watching. If there are specific games you want to see in the next episode of every game on Atari 50 reviewed, let me know in the comments below, because I will review them. I have to review them. They're on the collection. Yeah, it's a lot of fun making this video. I get to play Atari games. That's it. That's excuse enough for me to make this. So, thanks for watching. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, give me a follow, ring that bell. Send me your credit card number in the mail so I can commit acts of fraud.